The second challenge is, as I said, to realize our common experience. The third challenge is, as I said earlier, not to compare our ideal to somebody else's reality. We should compare each other in terms of ideals, Christian ideals, Muslim ideals, realities, Christian realities, Muslim realities. Then we see our ideals and we see our problems that we share in common. Otherwise, we are, to use an American phrase, stacking the deck against the other person. I'll just talk about my ideals and I'll deal with your reality. And so I can always retreat when you say, my God, look at what Christians have done or whatever. That's not really Christianity. So that has nothing to do with it. Rather than saying that may not be Christianity, but indeed a lot of Christians engage in that. So the ability to talk, if we want to appreciate each other, about our shared ideals as well as our shared realities. In terms of the Muslim community itself, what are some observations that can be made? To me, this is the most important observation, both globally and domestically. Muslims have to not just reclaim Islam, they have to reclaim their self-confidence. When Islam spread in the early centuries, the reason why it was such a dynamic, interactive force, in addition to talking about God's guidance in terms of Islam spreading, was that Muslims were self-confident. They felt that they were in control, so when they engaged other cultures and civilizations, they could interact and dialogue and borrow freely. There wasn't the concern of losing one's identity, of being co-opted, of being overpowered. Now, it's not to say that Muslims don't have a problem at times in some societies with the issue of being overwhelmed in terms of cultural penetration, etc. But in many other parts of the world, and in many situations, Muslims are a lot more established, empowered than they allow themselves to be. Empowerment is very much something that is necessary in self-confidence. The danger with simply repeating the past and remembering the past, if you're not careful, is that you tend then to live in the past and not say, this is what the past was about, what can we learn from it? Thank God we're in a position to move beyond it. How do we build on that? Otherwise, we're still fighting the battles of the past, and we're still feeling that we're not empowered. For example, when Italian Catholics came to the United States, they were a minority, religiously and ethnically. They were not accepted by the dominant group. They could not get into the best schools and universities. When my father went for a job in New York, it said blacks, Jews, and Italians need not apply. When I was a young man going to a beach in Massachusetts, I was told by someone, be a little careful because they don't like blacks, Puerto Ricans, and Italians. The community was faced with empowering itself. It had to think about how do we, as a minority community, raise our children in this majority community, educate them in a way in which they will not simply be overwhelmed by that majority experience. How do we, as a disenfranchised minority community, move into the positions of, if you will, power and authority within the society? I had a colleague I'd go to lunch with all the time, and he would always ask me the same questions. We would go, not all the time, we would go to lunch every 3 or 4 years. And he must have had a bad memory. Every 3 or 4 years, we would sit down and he'd say to me, so John, how's your wife and the children? And I would say, I told you a long time ago that my wife and I decided not to have children. Oh, so John, how is your garden? And I'd look at him and say, my garden? He'd say, well, you know, your people have gardens. The Italians have gardens. How are the zucchini? And I would say, we don't have a garden. We don't do zucchini. And then I would say, but I built a patio. And he'd say, because Italians are good with cement. We build patios and we put people in cement. And then I would say, no, I didn't build a patio. I got you. We don't do patios in my family either. Yeah, but you see, the image was that we were all trained not to go to university, not to move into top positions, but yes, we could be laborers, but never move beyond being laborers. That community has empowered itself. The Italian, Catholic, Italian-American community, Irish-American community, Polish-American community.